5b1. Okay, 5b1, literally right on the top. Okay, let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, so yesterday we went through a Baraisa, and again, a Baraisa was written at the same time as the Mishnah, as the time of the Mishnah, but the Baraisas were not included in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Anasi did not put them into the Mishnah. So they were another set of corresponding Mishnayos that didn't make it up to the level of Mishnayos. That's what a Baraisa is, in essence. Other commentary that didn't quite make it into the final version. But we still knew of them, and they have to be accounted for. So anyways, we had a Baraisa that went through a whole bunch of stuff that said that if you don't bring these in time, i.e. past the 3 festivals of Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, depending on what order and etc., I think you blow it and you're over on Baal Ta'achel Shalom. Do not delay in paying up what you vowed to do. So now the Gemara is going to go into each one of those pieces. Here we go. Tanu Rabbanan. The pasuk says, Ki sidar neder, when you shall make a vow, you shall not delay in paying it. You shall not take your time. This is Pashas Matos. We learn it in the summertime. Ainli ela neder. I might have thought it's only a neder. Nedava, a vow. A nedava, but not a vow. A nedava. How do I know this also subject to do not delay? Nema kan neder, the neder lahalon im neder on yedova. The pasuk starts. We have a pasuk when you shall make a neder, and then the pasuk goes on. It says if you shall have a neder or a nedava. Ma lahalon nedava imay. Just like over there, nedava is included, is attached to neder. Avkan nedava imay is attached to neder as well. Do not delay in paying it. What is the difference? Since Jeff, you're about to ask me that question.
You were seeing my lips.
What is the difference between a neder and a nedava? So I'm going to say it now, but the Gemara is going to come with a difference. A neder is tied to you. A nedava is tied to the object. What do I mean? If a person says, Hare olai neder, it is on me to bring an animal for to consecrate an animal for the Beis Hamikdash. It's on me. That's a neder. A nedava is this animal, Hare zu linedava. This animal is consecrated for the Beis Hamikdash. What is the difference? The difference is known as achrayus, responsibility. Meaning, what happens if this animal passes away, dies? By a neder, it means I have to bring another. Because what did I say? What did the person say? It's incumbent on me to bring an animal, to consecrate an animal. I'm still here. So it's on me, the individual, known as the Gavra. It's on me, the individual. So I have to go get another animal. By a nedava, it's not on me. It was on the object, on the chepza. Hare zu carbon. This animal will be consecrated. So if this animal should die, I have no responsibility to get another animal in place of this one.
Okay, so in Pesukim,
Right.
We kind of learned that if someone's bringing a korban, it's on him to bring the korban. But if the animal died, he's not off the hook, right?
That's because because he made in a carbon, in an obligatory carbon. So somebody needs to bring a sin offering, let's say.
Right.
It's not in the animal, it's in the person. You have to bring a sin offering. So if the animal that you choose to bring the sin offering dies, you got to break another one, because it's got nothing to do with the animal. It's got everything to do with you, the individual.
Can there ever be a case where there's both a neder and a nedava?
Not really, because what we're talking about over here, you asked me a question about obligatory.
Right.
I'm talking about non-obligatory. He wants to bring an oilas nedava or a shalmei nedava. He wants to bring an oila, a donative oila, or a donative shalomim. Now, depending on how he phrases it, tells against it. So in donating it, does he say it's incumbent on me, the individual, to bring a donative oila? Or does he say this animal will be brought as a donative oila? The difference is quite simple. The first language is he's making himself responsible to bring a donative. In the second language, he's saying specific, this animal is the donative. So if this animal shall die, in the second language, which is the language of a nedava, this animal is being set aside as a donation. That animal dies, I'm off the hook. But in the first language, which is I am responsible for bringing a donative sacrifice, if that animal should die, the one that it chose got nothing to do with it. I'm still here. I have a responsibility. And the Gemara later is going to bring, and the difference in language, quite simply in Hebrew, is the following. Hare olai, it's a company olai on me to bring the donative, the donation, or hare, what's the word? Hare zu, this shall be the donative animal. That's the entire difference between a nedava and a neder. Okay? So, but the Gemara is going to talk about it. Okay? So let's keep going over here. We're now in the right column of 5b1. La Hashem Elekecha. The pasuk keeps going. You shall make a vow to Hashem your God. Elu hadomim ha'achin ba'acharomim ba'kedeshus. These are the value vows, the erech vows, the cherem vows, and the consecrations, which we talked about yesterday. Value vows are when a guy says, I'm going to give the value of myself, how much it would cost to buy me in the slave markets. That's what I'll give to the Beis Hamikdash. An erech is what the Torah gave values, basic values of a child from 30 days up to 5 years, from 5 years to 20, 20 to 60, and so on. Cherem is, again, essentially where somebody looks at an animal and consecrates it. And consecrations is a much more broader version of a cherem. But that's the idea. The pasuk says further, Loi sa'achel l'shalmai, which is, of course, the prohibition. You shall not delay to pay it. Hu v'loi chilufav. This teaches that one is only liable for delaying it, but not delaying its substitute. So in other words, if you put aside an animal and then it got lost or stolen, and you designated a second animal, and then you find the first animal, and you bring the first animal right away because that was your original animal that you meant to bring. The second animal you delay, and you don't bring it for another year or so. You're not over. You didn't break the prohibition of you shall not delay to pay it. You shall not delay to pay it. It's only tied to it. It, l'shalmai, it, to pay it that you originally consecrated, not the substitute that you put in its place. And of course, the Gemara is going to tackle this in a little bit, right? Pasuk goes further. Ki darash yidrashenu, for he will demand it. What's the demand? This is what we talked about before. The obligatory sacrifices. Elu chatois v'ashamois oilois u'shalomim. This is the chatos, the asham, the oila, and the shalomim offerings. Okay, and these are the obligatory ones. The shalomim and the oilas over here are the obligatory oilas and shalomim as well. Hashem Elokecha. The next thing that it says in there, Elu tzedakos, charitable donations, u'maisros. This includes ma'aser, what do you call it? This is ma'aser rishon, ma'aser sheni, ma'aser ani, okay? And the bechar offerings. Ubechar, the bechar offerings is that you have to bring before that when the firstborn is born, when a firstborn animal is born, right? The first child, no different than pidyon aben by human beings, right? On the 30th day, one is podeh, his first child to Hashem for 5 gold pieces that he gives to the kohen. With regard to the animals, you pay to the animal itself, you bring the animal itself. May imach. This is leket shechem peah. Leket are when you're in the field and sheaves fall to the ground. You have to leave them on the ground. Shikha is sheaves of tevuah that when you cut your field, you left a few stalks around. You got to keep leaving those stalks there. And peah is that everybody's required to leave over one corner of his field for the poor people to be able to come and eat. So what happens if you by accident forgot and you took it all? You have within 3 regalim to pay back what you took. Okay, we're on 5b now. 5b. There will be a sin found in you that teaches if you delay the payment of a vow, there will be a sin unto you, but not a sin in your offering. In other words, if you delay and you didn't pay after 3 regalim, you're over on the prohibition of you shall not delay. But what about the animal itself? Am I allowed to bring the animal? The answer is yes, I could still bring the animal. I still should bring the animal. But you get it, but you were over on a prohibition of delaying. But you should still bring the animal. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to go through various pieces of this. Here we go. Amamars loy sa'achel l'shalma. You shall not delay in paying it. Hu v'loy chelifufa. That means you're liable for not paying it, but not its substitute. So again, if the original animal got lost or stolen and you substituted a second and then you found the first, and you bring the first on time, and then you delay in bringing the substitute, which of course is also now holy, you're not over on loy sa'achel l'shalma. You didn't break the prohibition of delaying and paying it. Only on the original l'shalmoi, it, but not its replacement. So Frank the Gemara, wait a minute. Let's see. Chalupe demai. What are we talking about? Okay. If you're talking about a substitute of an oilo or shalomim, mikravi kari. The substitutes are surely offered. They need to be offered. Even after the original oila is offered, the substitute must be offered. So therefore, since it must be offered in its own right, it's on the same level as the original animal that was set aside as an oila. You're now lining up the substitute became the exact same carbon copy. Of course, you have a chiyuv of loy sa'achel l'shalma. You can't push off paying it off. If you talk about a substitute of a chatos, meaning one had to bring a sin offering and it got lost and stolen, and he put aside another animal for a chatos, and then they found the original sin offering, you bring the original sin offering. You know what the rule is about the second chatos animal? The rule is lemisa ozla. It's left to die. You leave it out in the field and you let it die in the field. Because it is a sin offering. Since another animal is already brought for the sin, what are you going to do with this animal? The answer is, got to let it go. So then if that's the case, then if that's the case, what's the substitute? The answer is Chalufe Toida, the substitute of a Toida. A Toida is a Thanksgiving animal, meaning you bring it for 4 reasons. You were in jail and you got freed. You were sick and you got better. You crossed the ocean and you crossed the desert. Along with the animal, you have to bring 40 loaves of bread, 10 non-chametz, 30 chametz. And the reason for that is because we wanted you to make a Sudas Haidah, a party of Thanksgiving. We wanted you to invite all your friends to share from it and thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu publicly for being saved. So, Chalufe Taida. So the original, in other words, you had an original Taida that got lost. Then you designated a new animal to be your Taida. And then you found your first one. And the 2 animals, which look exactly alike, got mixed up with each other. You lost track. The Tani Rabchia, Taida Shenis Arabit Timurasa, a Taida that gets intermingled with its Timura, with its substitute. Mesa Achas Mehem, and then one of them die. The one that's still alive has no remedy. It cannot be brought. Why not? Hey, okay, the ruling is as follows. Hey, beloved, what should I do? Should he offer it and should say, wait a minute, maybe this is the Taida. Maybe this was the original Thanksgiving offering. So should he offer it and offer it with the 40 loaves of bread that you need to go ahead and bring with your carbon taida? Dilma Timuro, maybe it's only the substitute, and the substitute is brought without the 40 breads. So I can already see Jeff saying, jumping on me, no, and if you bring it with the 40 breads, what's the biggie? But the answer is, we have a rule. You're not allowed to bring non-consecrated stuff into the Beis Hamikdash. If the breads are not supposed to be brought with the taida, then the breads aren't holy. And if they're not holy, they don't belong in the Beis Hamikdash. So I can't, on an uncertainty, I can't bring them into the Beis Hamikdash. So I can't get around. Of course, the question should be, no, and what's the big deal if I do bring the breads? The answer is, it is a big deal. Because if this is the original, okay, then the breads are holy because I'm supposed to bring the 40 breads with the original. But if this is the substitute doesn't come along with the 40 breads. Then the 40 breads are simply breads from the bakery. Just regular, good, old, non-consecrated bread that we have in our freezer. It's not holy. It doesn't belong in the Beis Hamikdash. If it doesn't belong in the Beis Hamikdash, I'm not allowed to bring them. So now I got a problem. So the Gemara says, what should I do? Should I bring the remaining animal that's alive that I'm not sure is the original or the substitute? How can I bring it with the bread? Maybe it's the substitute. So you should say, okay, so offer it without the breads. Dilma Taidu, but that maybe it's the original animal, which must be brought along with the breads. If it's the original animal, then the breads are holy. And if the breads are holy, I've got to bring them into the Beis Hamikdash. And I'm not even allowed to use them outside. So what's going on? In other words, I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't. I'm stuck. So therefore, as a practical matter, as the Archko puts it, this animal cannot be offered. So therefore, if it cannot be offered, it can't be subject to delaying the Isser, the prohibition of Leisa'aka L'Shalmai. That's not possible because you can't bring it in the first place. So you can only be responsible for delaying something that you could bring. You can't be responsible for delaying something you can't bring. So says the Gemara, but since it's not subject to being offered, then what did I need the pasuk to exclude from against delaying? So we don't know. La'olam, what are we talking about? The mu'ute chalufei oilav u'shalomim. We're talking about the substitutes for oilers and shalomim. V'hachavim hayaskinim, what's the situation? Kigoy. Sha'avru alav shnei regolim v'humeim. Where two of the festivals passed. Pesach and Shavuos passed. And then in the summertime, before Sukkot, the oila or the shlomim got a blemish, got a mum, got a blemish. V'chilul al-achar, so therefore he transferred their sanctity onto another animal. Okay? All right, so here we go. He transferred its holiness onto another animal. V'over alav regel echad. Now Sukkot comes. And for some reason, the new animal that he just transferred the holiness onto, from the animals that got blemished onto good, pure, wholesome animals, he forgot to bring it on Sukkot. So now how many holidays have passed? Pesach, Shavuot, and now Sukkot. I might have thought, Sal Kedata Chamina, I might have thought, since the substitute is coming by virtue of the first offering, why did I create the substitute? Because I needed to bring the first offerings, and the first offerings got a blemish, so I put it onto the second. I had to put it onto a substitute. Therefore, it's merely stepped into the place of the first offerings. It's like a one offering that passed 3 festivals, and you should be liable now for having delayed. Kamash Malon, no. Even though you created this substitute in place of the animals that got a blemish, the cycle begins all anew. You need to have for this animal, lishal moi, for it. This animal requires a cycle of three festivals, and in fact, according to Saman the Omrim, a cycle of in order of Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. Very good. So now we're on 5b3, but Ularameya do Omar Chibin Sha'ober Olav Regel Echad Oiva B'Bal Ta'achar, that when even one festival passes, you transgress, so you shall not delay. What are you going to say? Because even if I made the substitute, Sukkot passes, it's one regel, boom. According to Rameh, the case would be as follows. In a case where the original Oilo Shlomim became blemished during the first festival, let's say during Pesach, and on the Yontif, he transferred its sanctity onto another animal. Over a regel, and then the regel finished, the festival finished. Since the substitute came about because of the first offering, which was supposed to, according to Rameya, be brought during this first holiday, it's as if it passed one full regel, and according to Rameya, you will have transgressed on Baltach and L'Shalmai, do not delay to pay it. Kamash Malon, no. That the fact is you created a substitute. And even though you created the substitute on the Yom Tif, it doesn't matter. Since he didn't get the full Yom Tif, he was created in the middle of a Yom Tif. His cycle doesn't begin. He gets another Yom Tif, complete Yom Tif, for himself before he would be over on Baal Ta'achar. Okay? So far we're good? Jeff? Good. And there will be a sin to you. We learned, meaning if 3 holidays pass, you will have the sin of do not delay. But the animal itself could and should be brought. So says the Gemara, what's the case? But is this, in fact, is this law learned from over here in our Mishnah, from this pasuk? There will be a sin to you, in you, but not in the offering. Is that where we learn it? Mida acherim nafka. We learn it from acherim. That's Rameir. The Tanya acherim oimrim acherim say yochel yeh bechar she'ava shenosai. I might have thought a bechar, a firstborn animal that you needed to bring with right away. What happens if its first year passes? It should be. I would have thought it should be considered kifisule hamikdoshim, the fossil, like a disqualified offering, and it should be disqualified as a sacrifice. It should be set aside to graze and get a blemish and sell and use its proceeds. Talmud Lima, therefore, it learns the and you shall eat lefnei Hashem elekecha, in front of Hashem your God. Ma'isa de gondcha tiroischa mitzarecha bechayrais bekarcha b'tzaincha. You shall eat before Hashem your God in the place that He will choose to rest His name, the meiser of your grain, your wine, and your oil, and the bechayrais and the firstborns of your cattle and flock, by putting together meiser sheni and bechayris before Hashem in Yerushalayim. The Torah is saying makish bechar lamaisa. I'm making a comparison between a firstborn and Maisa Sheni. Ma Maisa, just like Maisa Sheni. Eine Nifshel Mishana Lechabercha does not become disqualified. If you keep it from 1 year to the next, you still can eat it, but you still have to eat it in Yerushalayim. Bechar Eine Nifshel Mishana Lechabercha. So to a firstborn does not become disqualified when you leave it over from 1 year to the next year. So therefore, all other offerings should very well be exactly the same, analogous to the firstborn. That you could if you delay it, you can still bring it. Well, if that's the case, that's where we learn it from. We learn it from Bechar, and we don't learn it from this place. V'haya b'char chet, and it should be for you a sin about delaying, but not in the animal. Says the Gemara, Itzrich. We actually need the second location of Bahaya B'chochet to teach me this law as well. Sal Kedata Chamina. I might have thought, Hani Mili, Bechar, that it's only with regard to a Bechar, Dula Bar Hartzayu, which is not an offering of appeasement. It does not come to atone, to appease HaKadosh Baruch Hu on behalf of its owner. It does not come to atone for any kind of sin. It's merely this: a firstborn, upon being born, is automatically holy. It doesn't have a moment when it's not holy. It comes into the world holy. The moment it leaves leaves the womb of the mother, it becomes holy, because that's a firstborn. It needs to be redeemed in front of God. But sacred offerings, which are offerings of appeasement that are coming to ask God for forgiveness, I might say that if they're offered late and you're over and you broke you transgressed on, you shall not delay. I might thought, therefore, they do not appease. Kamash Malon, our Bryce is coming to teach. In you is the Aveira of do not delay, but not in the animal. It's coming to tell us that even though you delayed, the animal could be brought and will be hortza and will forgive. From here we learn, Jeff, that until the day of death, you can return, and if you return, you get accepted immediately. You delayed your whole life. We just learned. Okay, you delayed, but the carbon, which is ourselves also, can be forgiven, because being delayed doesn't stop from the appeasement of repentance.
Hmm.
That's what comes out. That's what this Gemara essentially is saying. Just because, in other words, hate the sin, never the sinner. Those are two separate things. The sinner can always return and should never lose hope that he can return. He should keep on trying no matter how many times he falls. Okay? And of course, if God works this way, we should work that way between Adam Lechaveroi, us and our fellow man. We should work the exact same way. We should, of course, forgive our fellow man, because if we're asking God to forgive us, even though we delay in asking for that forgiveness and in changing, we should be just as open to forgiving our fellow man as well. And stop worrying about that he didn't come over to you to ask you for forgiveness. And if he takes his time to ask you for forgiveness, don't make a big deal. I say, now you show up? No. You say, thank you so much for showing up. Says the Gemara Va'akati, but still, and now we're on today's daf Vav. Okay, and we'll go for, if you don't mind, we'll go till 9:30 if you have to. Do you have till 9:30, Jeff?
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, good. Let's see how far we can get down, because I wanted to try to get to Amid Beis so that we only have one daf to do on Shabbos. Okay, says the Gemara. That's not where we still on. Is not where we learn it from. I'm telling you, we're learning it from here. Mid Ben Azai Nafka. We're learning it from Ben Azai. Titania Ben Azai says, Oisai ma tamid loima. The pasuk says, look on the side of the art scroll again. On the right side, the right column, it says Torah or Hasholem. It brings Aleph, it brings up the pasuk that we're talking about here. The guy's going to eat from the blood, the meat of a zebach shlomim, from a shlomim offering. B'yayim hashlishi, on the third day, lo yirotze, it will not be accepted. Hamakar b'isay, somebody who slaughters it. Lo yechashim, should not even think about it. Pigol yeh, it's pigol. In other words, if somebody at the time of the offering of the animal, or at any time during any of the avodas, shchita, slaughtering, kabbalah, accepting the blood, halacha, carrying the blood to the altar, or zerika, throwing the blood, has a thought of eating the animal delayed after its time. In other words, if you can only eat this animal a day and a night, or a day and a night and a day, and he means to eat it on the third day, no good. The whole thing is pigul. And if you eat it, you're actually chayav kares. So, back to our Gemara. And in that pasuk it says pigul yeh, and that's the problem. So the pasuk says like this. Ben Azai Oimer, Oisai, ma tamid loima it. Oisai ma tamid loima. What is it? In reference to pigul, right? The pasuk says, if you look inside number 2, you see in the middle over there it has Hebrew words. Lo yerotzem hamakriv oisai lo yechashiv loy. It shall not be accepted. It will not be considered for the one who offers it. It will be pigul. So, what's the it? I didn't need the it. Shemeyani. I would have understood Ad me achen nidroi the bal yirotzer, that even one who delayed payment of his vow, it shall not be accepted. That's what I would have said. I would have said, just like pigul, if I have a thought that I'm going to eat this animal after its time frame, immediately the animal is not brought, the animal is not accepted. I would have said therefore the same thing, where I delay the payments of my vow, of his vow. Not only did I go ahead and delay it, but my vows cannot be brought, will not be accepted. Talmud loima oisai below yirotze. Pigul rises up that it shall not be accepted. The But somebody who delays his payment of his vow, it's true, he is over on Baal Ta'achel Shalem. He transgresses, do not delay. But the vow will be accepted, will be accepted. So in that case, if this is where we're learning it from the juxtaposition of Pigul, just Pigul will not be accepted. But anything else that's delayed will be accepted, then we're not learning it out from our pasuk. So what is the Haya B'chachet? Ella Haya B'chachet B'lai B'ishtachachet. But means that in you will be the delaying of the payment of the vow, and not in your wife. Sal Kedat Chamina. I might have thought, since Rabbi Yochanan said, and some say it came from Rabbi Elazar, Ein ishtadrei shel adam meisa ela im came mivakshim mimenu mamoy ve'ein loy. A man's wife does not die an early death, only if he's asked for money he had stolen from others and didn't have it to repay. If you have nothing with which to pay, why should he take your bed, your wife, from underneath you? I might have thought that on account of this sin as well, transgressing the commanding of not to delay, which has a similarity to stealing, his wife should die. Kamash Malon, that the sin is only in you and not your wife. The Mefarshim explain, why couldn't he pay back? Because his wife said to him, well, we have it anyways, let's keep it. Or she said, I need new jewelry. I'm sorry, you can't use this money to pay back, I need jewelry. Or I need a fur coat. So she's an accomplice to the crime. So when it comes to stealing directly, she's gonna get part of the punishment if they don't pay it back in time, in a timely fashion. But in the case of Baal Ta'achel L'Shalem, where you're the one who made the vow, you transgress like the Shalem. Your wife should have made you bring it on time, right? Doesn't matter. This is on you, not on her. Okay? There's a lot more to this. I just simplified it. The Mefarshim are very busy with this. This is one of the more difficult Gemaras. There's more going on here in the whole sugya of the thing. Anyways, let's keep going. Tanu Rabbanan. Might say sifasecha. What emerges from your mouth. That's what the Torah says. Kol mitzvasei sifasecha tishmar. Whatever emerges from your mouth, you shall watch and keep. Zu mitzvasei. This is a positive commandment to keep the vow. Tishmar, you shall watch. Zu mitzvasei. Do not neglect payment of your vow. V'asisa, you shall do. Azara lebezdin sheyasucha. It's a warning to the court that they should make you pay up your vow. The court system should be on top of this. And the Gemara again is going to talk about this. Kasher nedarta, just as you vowed, zen neder. This is talking about a neder when somebody said, Hare olai, it's incumbent on me. La Hashem elekecha, to Hashem your God, elu chatis v'ashamas oilas v'shlamim, the obligatory offerings. Nidava, kishma shmai, it means a nidava. What's a nidava? A nidava is not when it's on you, but it's on the specific item. Hare zu, this is. And the Gemara is going to explain this. We're now on 682. Asher dibarta, that you spoke. Elu v'kodshe bedekabayis. This refers to items that were made holy, were consecrated for the upkeep of the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, all kind of vows. The Domim vows, the Erech vows, the Cherem vows, etc. Pibefichach, that was in your mouth. Zu tzedakah. This refers to charity. This refers to the charity that you got to pay up to charity. Here we go. So says the Gemara, Amamar, in analyzing this baraisa, what emerges from your mouth, Zu mitzvah say, this is a positive commandment to keep your vow. Lamali, why do I need that pasuk? I already have another pasuk. Me uva asa shama ve'beisa shama. You shall come there to the Beis Hamikdash and you shall bring there your vowed offerings. So in other words, you shall come and you shall bring. So I don't need what he called matzah sifesecha. I already have a positive commandment that says you shall bring your vowed offerings. That's what the pasuk says. You shall bring your vowed offerings, right? So let's go. That's what it says. The pasuk says, "Va'veis shama." You shall bring there your donative oilas and your donated shlamim. So it says the second question. Tishmar, you finish saying, "Su mitzvahs loisa say." This is a negative commandment not to neglect paying up the vow. Lomali, what do I need to learn it from here? I already have the other pasuk, loisa achel shalmai. You shall not delay in paying it. Third question, va'asitza, and you shall do. You said in the Baraisa, Azara lebezdin she'asucha. You're warning to Bezin, you shall make sure that he pays up. Lomali, what do I need that pasuk for? I already have another pasuk. The pasuk says, Yakriv Oisai. It's a warning to the court, comes from, he shall bring it. He shall bring it. It says, Vim Oila Karbonai min Aboka, Zachat Tomid Yakrivenu al Pesachai Amayit, Yakriv Oisai L'Ritzainai L'Fnei Hashem. If his sacrifice is an oila of cattle, an unblemished male, he shall bring it to the entrance of the tabernacle. Once again, he shall bring it of his will to Hashem. So it says the words, he shall bring it twice in the same pasuk. Look at number 18. Look at number 18 on the bottom. If you look on number 18, it brings the pasuk, read the English. If his sacrifice is an oilah, an unblemished male, he shall bring it to the entrance of the tabernacle. He shall bring it of his will to Hashem. So the word, shall he bring it, he shall bring it, is repeated twice in the pasuk. Why do you need it twice? One time is enough. Then the answer is Titania, because we learned. Right now we're back in the Gemara. Titania, Yakriv Oisai, he shall bring it. Malamed, we learned from the second time that it says it. Shekaifin Oisai, we compel him, we hit him over the head to fulfill the sacrificial obligations. Yachal Bal Karchai, I might have thought, therefore you beat him even against his will. Talmud Laima L'Ritz Sinai, of his own will, he has to bring it. No, how does that work? If you bang him on the head, if you come in Bezdin and you beat him up, how's that his own will? Says the Gemara, Kaifin Oisai Ad Sheroitza Ani. Famous words. We compel him until he says, I'm willing to bring it. So the Rambam explains, every Jew really wants to do the right thing. But sometimes the Yetzer Hara gets in his way, the evil inclination gets in the way. So Bezdin comes and bangs on him until he says, yes, I really want to do it. And we accept that he really wants to do it. In the depths of his heart, he wants to do it. This is why, if a man does not want to give us a get, does not want to give a divorce to his wife, the halacha is, you're allowed to beat him up until he says, okay, I want to. A get is not allowed to be given al karchach. It's not allowed to be given against his will. The answer is, he really wants to do the right thing. He doesn't want to make his wife an aguna, but the Yetzer Hara got in the way, and you're allowed to beat him up. The problem is, in today's world, of course, you can't do that, right? But in the ancient world, that's exactly what they did. They made the guy's life a living hell until he decided to give the get. All right, so we go a little further. We got another few minutes. So now the Gemara explains, why do I need both psukim? Why do I need? So now I've got the pasuk over here that, what he called, that, why do I say all these psukim? Why do I need all these psukim to teach me? My mitzvah that it's a mitzvah say. I have the pasuk, and you should bring it there to teach it to me. Why do I have to say tishma, that it's a mitzvah, a negative commandment? I already have lois achal. You should not delay in paying it. Why do I have the sisa that Bezdin should be on top of the case? I already have the pasuk of Yaakov Isai. So says the Gemara. This is why I need it. One pasuk talks about the first stage of a vow, where a person declared that he's going to offer a sacrifice, but he didn't designate one. And then he designated the animal that he didn't yet bring it. And I need both. If you said the Torah was talking about where he said it but hadn't yet designated, I would say that's when he's liable because he has not fulfilled his word by actions, by actually designating an animal to bring. But if he already designated just lo Yaakov, he didn't yet bring it, the moment he's not liable, because the moment that he consecrated the animal, he designated the animal, guess who it belongs to? Ki Gaza de Rachmani Isa. It's in the treasury of the merciful one. It already belongs to God. You consecrated it, no longer belongs to you, it belongs to the Rebbeinu Shalom. And the whole world is the Rebbeinu Shalom's. So therefore, it's really not in your possession anymore. So even though you didn't bring it, yes, you did. You just don't know it. But it's really not yours. Tzaricha, therefore, I need a pasuk to tell me that he still needs to bring it. And if he doesn't bring it, he's over on the transgressions, on you did not, you delayed it. If the Torah would have taught us the law that he designated the animal, but he didn't offer it, he said, this is going to be the animal, but he didn't use the formula of setting it up, that's when he would be liable to come because he's keeping it in his possession. And what is he keeping in his possession? The Rebbeinu Shalom's property, God's property. So, but if he designated, but he didn't designate, he said it, but he did not designate an animal. I would have said words by themselves have no consequence. Words are not an action. An action is an action. So the words have no meaning until he actually goes ahead and designates an animal. Saricha, therefore, I need the second pasuk to tell me that words do matter. Everything that comes out of your mouth, you got to watch. Tishma, you got to not say. And Allah says a positive and a negative commandment that no, you got to bring it. Very good.
So if Yitzhak, if you and I are talking,
right,
and I say I'm going to give a donation to the shul,
right,
and you say that's very good. That's a good thing to do, and then we end it. That's the end of the conversation. But I've never designated when I'm going to do it or how much I'm going to get. Does that mean I'm not liable for that?
You are liable. We're saying, therefore,
because of the second part, what you just said, what comes out of your mouth makes you liable, or makes you responsible for what you say.
So I'll give an example. Yesterday there was, unfortunately, on my next block. You remember the tragedy that happened in Israel on Lag BaOmer in Miron?
Yes, absolutely.
That it collapsed.
The stairs collapsed. Yes.
Right, and 40-something people got trampled. Unfortunately, my neighbor on the next block here in Brooklyn, his son was one of those tragic people. His son was engaged to get married. And this week would have been the marriage. And this week would have been the Sheva Brachas. So last night they made a little party because he's going to start a fund in the name of his son. So I wrote out a check. In my mind, I wasn't sure what I wanted to give, whatever. In my mind, I said, you know what, I'll give $500. And then when I wrote the check, I only wrote it for $360. I didn't actually say it. I then went right ahead and wrote out another check for $150. Because I said, I know what was in my head.
The intent, yes.
The intent. I said, you know what? Exactly. That's what I intended. That's what I should do. The answer is, when it comes to this stuff, intentions by themselves really don't mean anything. But you know, if it comes out of your mouth, you definitely have to give something. Now you can give $1 and you're good to go.
But what you just said is so common. I mean, that is so common what you said.
Right.
I would have to think it's so common.
It is common. It is. You have something. You go to shul. I'll give you an example. You go to shul, and you know, and they have an appeal, right? And you say, oh, another appeal, right? And you say, right, another appeal. Okay, I'll give him $180, right, in your head. And then why 180? I'm only going to give 100.
Yeah.
Right? Reggie's going to get all of my case. But then you say, wait a minute, I said 180, didn't I?
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying.
Right, and it's a struggle. But it's a struggle. And sometimes we fail and sometimes we don't. But it is clear from the Gemara that the Gemara wants you to take this seriously. And if it comes out of your mouth, it's certainly serious. And you got to do your best to pay up. At the end of the day, what's the big deal? So I gave an extra 160. It's going to make it break my life? No. It is what it is.
Exactly. Yes.
And now I know why it happened, so that this Gemara was coming up. It could apply to the Gemara, and I've got something to say at this year.
But at what point is what you're thinking? I'm thinking I'm going to give 360, and what you're saying.
So I can only tell you a different Gemara. It's a famous Gemara where somebody came to somebody who had something to sell, and he offered the guy money. He offered the Tana, money, X amount of dollars. Okay? And the Tana didn't answer. And so he offered him more, and he didn't answer. And then he offered him even more. And then the Tana turned around and said, listen, I'm so sorry I couldn't respond because I was in the middle of saying Shema. I was saying Krishma. But you should know the first price you mentioned, in my mind during Shema, I said, okay, I will accept it. So therefore, I can't take the higher price that you're offering.
Yeah.
Bank. Intent matters.
Yeah. But how many people would have said that?
And that's why the Gemara brings it. The Gemara brings it even in the case of a guy, the famous guy, who had a beautiful diamond. Okay? And we're going to bang into this case. Who had a beautiful diamond. And the rabbis came, they wanted the diamond to use in the Beis HaMikdash.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you call it? And the son of the guy said, I'm so sorry. My father is sleeping. And I can't wake him up. And they offered him astronomical amounts of money. And he said, thank you so much, but my father is sleeping. So they couldn't hang around anymore. And they walked away. And they took a different diamond. And the guy lost out. The next year, a para aduma, a red heifer, which is so thing, was born to this guy. And he made about 10 times more than he would have made on the diamond. And the Gemara brings the Rabbi Shalom rewarded him. Because the guy said, I'm not waking my father up for all the money in the world. Money's money. The honor of my father is the honor of my father. God said, that's a holy person. Gemara brings this case. So there's your answer. There's your answer.
Interesting.
Yeah. And you'll remember, hopefully, when we get up to these cases, and you'll try to remember this. Come on, let's just go a little further because I just want to get on to
No, sure.
because that's what we told Jerry, and then we got
Right.
one down.
And catch up a little bit. Sure.
Right, we're gonna catch up. Okay. So says the Gemara, we're on 683. Umi motzis amrit the amaloi afrish. But how can someone say that one of the psukim is talking about where he declared that he's going to offer a sacrifice, but he didn't designate it? Hanedava ksiva. By nedava, it's written when the word nedava is written in each verse. It's not, and we learned our conversation, Jeff. Ezu neder. What is a neder? Ha'oima hare olai oila. It's incumbent on me to bring an oila offering. Ezu nedava. What is a nedava? Ha'oima hare zu oila. This animal is designated as an offering. Ma be neder and nedava. What's the difference? Neder means in the case of a neder, where after he designates the animal, it dies or gets stolen. In Achrayus, he's mechuyev, he's responsible. Why? Because he said it's incumbent upon me to bring the offering. Me is still around. Nidava may say nignava. In the case of a dava, if the designated animal dies or gets stolen, ain't a chayiv achirusai. He's not chayiv in achrayis because it was harezu. This animal is designated, this and not another, right? Which is what we discussed earlier today. So what are we learning from here? By definition, a vow to bring in a dava constitutes a designation. How could either person talking about a person who vowed to bring in a dava but did not designate one? A nedava, by its very nature, is what? Hare zu.
Designation.
This animal is sanctified, is designated. That means the wording of a nedava is on the animal. You automatically designate when you make a nedava. On a neder, when it's on you, on a vow, when it's on you, hare olai, it's incumbent on me to bring a sacrificial. There, I could have said something without having designated. But a nedava is hare zu. This animal is consecrated to bring for a sacrifice. So you automatically are in the animal, which means you automatically designate. You can't have a nedava without a designation. In other words, even on money, what did you say? You could say it's incumbent on me to give a donation to the shul. So there you mechayev yourself, you encumbered yourself to bring a donation, but you didn't say what the donation is. But if you say this money is for the shul, then that's the exact money that you bring into the shul.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Got it.
Amarava. So how could you say a nedava could be such a case of where I spoke, but I didn't designate? It's impossible. Amarava, yes, it is. Mishkachas, I'll find you a case. Kegoin the Oma Hareo Lai Oila Al Menashe Nechayev Achirusei. It's incumbent on me to bring an oila. So he uses the language of a neder, of a vow, and then he turns around and says, on the condition that I'm not responsible for replacing it, that I got no responsibility. So according to him, right, in such a case, it's called a nedava, because it looks like a nedava that he has no responsibility. Normally, this would be a problem known as masna al mas shekosav b'Torah, a stipulation that runs counter to what the Torah wants. Since he said it's incumbent on me, that's the language of a neder, of a vow. We should ignore the last part on the condition that I'm not responsible, which is the language of a nedava, of a donative. We should just ignore it and say you are responsible.
Yeah, he's making a neder with a loophole.
With the loophole. So therefore, we're going to keep your words as a neder and get rid of the loophole.
Yeah.
Here. This is different. And there's many different portions. But I think the reason is because since Lamaisa, that an Adava is fulfilled through his words, right? Memela, he's not being masna masha kosa b'Torah. In other words, the masna, the stipulation in this case, at this moment in time, is changing nothing. Right now, the animal is here. Right now, it needs to be brought to be donated to the shul, to the Beis Hamikdash. Right now, it's here. The stipulation is not even in place yet. The stipulation is only triggered if and when the animal dies or gets stolen. But right now, the animal is not dead, it's alive. Right now, it's not stolen, it's here. It's likely not to die. It's likely not to get stolen. So the stipulation, the Tanai, is likely never to be triggered. So you know what? Fine. Go ahead. Just bring it. We'll let you in. We'll let you through the door. That's my opinion. Anyways, I think that's the explanation. I didn't get a chance to look up to see what others say, but I wouldn't be surprised if that seems to be the logical answer, the explanation. Let's go just a little further because we told Jerry we'll get onto the thing. It's 9:35, 9:40. We'll go to 9:45, and that's it. We'll have learned for an hour. Here we go. Beficha, thank you, Jeff. Beficha zu tzedakah. This is charity. We just spoke about charity, Jeff. Tzedakah mechayv lo la'alta. Wait a minute. Amarava u'tzedakah mechayv lo la'alta. But in the case of charity, you're immediately liable even before any of the Yom Tovim pass. The moment there's an appeal in the shul, you're liable. Matthew sends you out a bill like 2 days later. He doesn't wait. So, my tama, why? The poor people are standing in front of us who need the charity without delay, right? What are you delayed for, right? They're making a wedding next week. They don't need you to give their money and then 3 holidays from now. They need the money now. Says the Gemara Pshita, that's obvious. So Mao the same, says the Gemara. I might have thought to be inone kabbanis ksiva, since the prohibition of not delaying is written by in the context of sacrifices. One should not be liable until 3 festivals pass. Kikabanas, like sacrifices, Kamash Malon. Comes Robert to teach us, Hasam who did Solinu Rachmana Birigolim. It's in the case of sacrifices that the merciful one pushed off the liability on the contingency of passing 3 regalim. Avol Hacha, in the case of charity, loy does shchichi aniyim, because the poor people are common and need the charity immediately. And that's a fact. Most charitable things, as you know, are things that are made in the short term. The short-term appeals. The difference will be when the shul over here in Boca makes its long-term appeal when they get the opportunity to buy the whole shopping center, right? And we're going to need to come up with $30 million. And essentially, you're going to want everybody to pledge $100,000 so that at the very least, we don't have to take a huge mortgage in the middle of it. And obviously, people are not going to say $100,000, are you out of your freaking mind? So they're going to say, okay, listen, pay it out over 4 years or over 5 years. Pay it at $20,000 a year, right? Do your best, right? Now, that's a much longer appeal, right? You can see that appeal coming a mile away, by the way, right? You know, it's like a Mack truck coming down the road, right? Yeah. You can see it coming, and because it's ridiculous that we're paying rent and we're not buying the building. I mean, it's crazy. So, right? So that's a long-term appeal. That's a capital appeal. But most appeals are not capital. Most appeals are here today, right? In other words, they're looking for a sponsor. They're looking for a sponsor for the Kiddush on Shabbos, right? Like Isaac Sharp sent out a text last night. We need a sponsor for this week's Kiddush, right? So Abe Groman stepped up and said, okay, I'll sponsor. Bang. That's a short-term sponsorship because you need the Kiddushes tomorrow, right? But so there's a difference. Rava is saying when it comes to tzedakahs, those are short terms. That's short term.
Yeah.
Got to do it. Very good. Amar Rava, says Rava, chivan she'avar alav regel echad. As soon as one festival passes and he's not fulfilled his obligation, this refers to the sacrifices. Oiver, he's over. We're now on 6A4. Oiver ba'aseh. He's over on a commandment, a positive commandment. Which one? Look at number 34. 34 on the bottom. You shall come there and you shall bring there. That's what he's over on. Right? That pasuk that we had before. So Frank the Gemara asked the Gemara, be Meisvei, asked the Gemara, Meisvei, hey, Rabbi Yeshua Papios, right? Papaya. Rabbi Yeshua and Papayas testified. Al Valad Shalomim Sheyikarev Shalomim, about the offspring of a Shalomim, that it should be also offered as a Shalomim. You slaughter a Shalomim was pregnant, or a Shalomim was pregnant when it was designated, or became pregnant after it was designated. So its offspring should also be offered as a Shalomim. Amar Rapayis, Ani Meid Shahayu Lanu Parashal Zibche Shalomim. I testify that we had a cow that we had sanctified as a Shalomim sacrifice. V'achalonu b'Pesach, and we ate it on Pesach. V'achalonu b'lad shlomim b'chag, and we ate its offspring as a shlomim on all the way at the other end of the year in Sukkot. So says the Gemara, B'shlema b'Pesach lo yakrim. It's understood that on Pesach they did not offer this offspring, the Velad HaShlomim, the offspring of the cow. On Pesach, Emo de Mechutz Zaman Avi, because we could say it was still premature, because the animal, the offspring was not yet 8 days old. We do not slaughter an animal less than 8 days old, because it's not considered viable until 8 days. The first 7 days, we have to worry, maybe it's a treifa, maybe it won't survive. Ella, Vlad Batseres, Heichim Mishka Mashazle, Ba'abilei Basei. But how could you have delayed the bringing of the offspring to Shavu to bring in the Shavuos? You have delayed bringing it on Shavuot, and instead you brought it on Sukkot. That means you passed over one of the regolim. You passed over one of the holidays. Rava just said if you pass one regel, you're over on an assay. Because of the passing for us, you should come there and you should bring it. So how did Rapayas go ahead and push off the bringing of the offspring of the Shlomim, not on Shavuos, but all the way on Sukkot? Rav Zvid Mishmei de Rava, came Rav Zvid in the name of Rava. Kegoin, for an example, the case was, and now we're on 6B, 6B1. 6B1, here we go, says the Gemara, Shoyach Choyla Ba'atzeres, because it was sick on Shavuos. It was sick, you couldn't bring it on Shavuos. Rav Ashi Omar, Mava Chonu Velad Shlomim B'Chag Diktoni. We're talking about Chag Shavuos. Sometimes Shavuos is Atzeres. Sometimes Shavuos is also called Atzeres, because the reality of Shavuos is that it is the Atzeres, the extension of Pesach. Why was there the Exodus? Why were we free from Egypt? In order to accept the Torah. Matan Torah for us to go ahead and what do you call it, accept the Torah. So the Edach and the other Rav Zvid doesn't give this answer. Kol Echad Tani Pesach Tani Atzeres. Whenever a Tana states the name Pesach, he says Atzeres and not Chag for Shavuos. Since the Braisa uses the word Chag, it must mean Sukkos, and therefore you have to say that the animal was sick on Shavuos. Let's go one more, and then we're going to stop. But Amar Rava Chivish Abru Alav Shalosh Regalim, when 3 festivals, Chol Yom v'Yom Oiver v'Abal Ta'acher, on every day, provided he's over on the violation of the commandment, do not delay. Okay? It's only, by the way, why every day? Because the night times you can't bring a sacrifice. So every night, the prohibition stops. So the next morning, the prohibition is reborn. So every single day, you get a new prohibition of Baal Ta'achel L'Shalem. You delay. You keep adding on to your Averis each day by adding another Baal Ta'achel. It's not one long Baal Ta'achel, because every night, I can't bring the animal into the carbon. So the nighttime breaks it off. That's why, according to the Rambam, we make a bracha on tefillin every day. Because he says nighttime is not the time for tefillin. So the mitzvah of tefillin stops at night. So the next morning, I got a brand new mitzvah. So I make a brand new bracha. Not everybody holds that. Other people hold tefillin is a tamimis. And then really you should only make a bracha once in your life, when the first time you put it on, and that's it. Anyways, let's keep going. Meisvei fragt the Gemara, Echad v'chava echad kol hakadoshim, both the Bechor and all other sacred offerings, Chivan shabru aleim shana b'loy regalim, as soon as the year passes, even without 3 festivals, regalim b'loy shana, or 3 festivals without the year actually passing, oiva v'bal ta'acha, you're over on that delay. How does this Baraisa be a problem with what Rava said? The one who challenged Rava was challenging it from this Baraisa well. Nechti. Tana alave kamahada. The Tana of our Baraisa is clearly seeking all the prohibitions that pertain to delaying of a vow. Everywhere that you could be over on Baal Ta'achel L'Shalem. Listening, then if that's the case, if Rava was right that every day you get a new Aveira of do not delay, listening b'chol yom v'yom over a Baal Ta'acher. By the very fact that he does not do that, the Idach, there is proof that what he called Rava is not wrong. It's only one Isser, one you're over a Baal Ta'acher, and that's it. The Idach, Tani lemikbuye, Balav Kamahadi. This Tana is coming to establish when the vower begins to be liable for his prohibition. Balav Yisera, for the additional lav and repeated prohibitions, like Kamahadi is not talking about. And this is where we're stopping. Now,